special event this evening. I'm gonna go ahead and call the Board of City Commissioners meeting to order and declare that we do have a quorum. Then I will defer to Planning Commission to call their meeting to order.
We're also a planning commission special meeting. We're gonna call the meeting to order and declare we have a quorum, 4 of us.
All right, so the first item on the, or the only item on the agenda this evening is presentation and discussion with Olson representative regarding the city's comprehensive master plan, specifically review of draft plan and possible action. So who do I, Brian, you want first?
Yes, sir. So I'll open it up. Gentlemen, thank you. First of all, thanks for coming out. What we're gonna do is we're gonna spend about the next hour to hour and a half, giving you an opportunity to provide feedback, but also giving you, a readout of a lot of hard work that's gone in and a lot of input that our consultants have spent time and energy, gathering. We have met people where they are, whether it's Facebook, whether it's a football game, the art festival in the fall, folks have, plus the technical committee, the stakeholder committee, all of those folks have provided input, and it's been about 6 months, 8 months, give or take, of data collection, and you're gonna see a large portion of that response tonight, as Shelby, from Olson is gonna come, her intern assistant, new person,
Sure.
person in dire need of a V8, if you can kind of crack your head kind of sideways and things there, helping out. She's new to the project, let me put it that way. She's not necessarily new to Olson, but she's new to the project. And I was told to go easy on her, and I've obviously failed. But again, a lot of hard work, a lot of input, a lot of folks have submitted not only time in the committees that we formed, but also time and input into some of these things that you're going to see today. Talking generically goals. This is all draft, and Shelby will reiterate that. But right now, again, the two committees had a chance to look at this earlier today. What you see behind me on the walls, she'll brief you out on that, as well as give you an opportunity to provide input and walk you through it. Shelby.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you everyone this evening for being with us. As he mentioned, I'm Shelby Ferguson. If you remember, I know we met probably 6 months or so ago, but you've also seen me within your community over the last several months as well, especially in the fall. Olson came in and did several engagement events. And then as he mentioned, I have Zoe with me, who is a planner within our Olson team as well. And so, yes, she's new to the project and newer to our team as well. So I hope you all welcome her. And so she's a new face. I know you've seen several of our other members with us, especially during that charrette process. We had a whole team of Olson individuals here back in the fall. As they mentioned, as Brian mentioned, you know, this is the culmination of several engagement events, a lot of data collection, engagement online, in person, and then really we spent the winter time drafting the plan. And so really everything that's on the walls behind me is really a wrap up of that draft. It's not the full draft. I'm not going to make you sit here and read through all 60-ish pages of the narrative of the plan, but it is the big component of it is our mapping frameworks that are hanging back there, as well as the draft goals and strategy statements. And so as he mentioned, we had an earlier session today from 3 to 4:30 with the stakeholder committee and our technical committee. So they have been individuals who have been our sounding board throughout this process, and also walking alongside us and doing very similar activities that we've done with you all simultaneously when we come in. So we'll ask you to do a similar exercise as they did earlier today. But then what I would ask is that we'll come back and then talk about any of the recommendations that are up there and see if there's any areas that need to be refined. And so that will be a charge when we leave here is through our conversation that we have this evening, we will go back to our home base office and make those refinements and then get everything back into a more final draft form of the plan, and then provide that back to staff for a final read through and review, as well as then produce a PDF document as well that will then be for public review. So with that, I just kind of want to draw some attention to what is back there. Is it truly is each component of the plan document. And again, it's just pieced out into the sections. There's headers back there that you'll see. So the section 1 of our plan, while it's not hanging up back there, it truly is an introduction. It explains the why and the how of the comprehensive master plan for Sallisaw. So why are we doing this effort? How will it be used? What's the time frame behind using the plan as well? So really all of that introductory piece. Then we start with section 2, which is closest to the door there. It really focuses in on a vision statement and core values. So that is just really answering the call of what does Sallisaw over the next 10, 15 years, what do you want to be? And that came through the visioning processes that we did with you all, as well as the stakeholder group, and then hearing from the community. So there's a vision statement back there as well as core values. So would love to have some feedback on those. Then we go into really the meat of the document, which is section 2 or section 3, which is the future land use and strategic growth. So again, there's draft goals, draft strategy statements, and what those really start to look at is you'll see the very colorful map back there on the top is our future land use map. And so I just want to call to attention that while the colorings are very similar and look like zoning, it is not a zoning map. It is truly future land use. So you use this as a guiding document, a guiding map for as developments come in, as properties develop, redevelop, what is the highest and best uses? What should those areas become? Should it be single family residential? Should it be industrial, commercial, et cetera? And so that really provides you a guidebook in looking at, we're looking at this very specific parcel of land according to our future land use map. It's identified as red. It should be commercial. So does this industrial use make sense here? By this map and by the economic and market analysis report, it does not. So it helps you give a guide and starts to set those guidelines for approving future development and redevelopment. Underneath that map is our strategic growth, really looking at redevelopment and development. So not only vacant parcels that are greenfields, but also already developed property. Again, as those come in, what areas should be priority? All that information is really based off of our economic and market analysis that was done by our subconsultant, Eric Lander. Through his report, we started to identify very specific parcels within Sallisaw that are key and ripe for redevelopment or development. So that's what that map will show you. Next to that are the future land use designations. I should have mentioned that. There are key definitions there. So that starts to really explain when we say that a specific use is a suburban neighborhood, what does that exactly mean? How should that build out? What uses should be included in there? If we talk about an industrial hub, what does that include? So it just gives you more of a definition of what those specific uses are and what should be included in them. Then we go on to section 4 of the plan, which is looking at transportation and mobility. Again, really looking at how to Sallisaw connect, not only in terms of vehicular traffic, but all modes. So multimodal, your truck traffic, your vehicular traffic, pedestrians, bikes, etc. So how are you connecting not only your developments as they start to come in, but also moving people about your community in a safe and efficient manner. And then the next section is section 5, which is starting to look at placemaking. So that really starts to look at aesthetics, beautification of Sallisaw. So something that we heard as a priority is looking at sidewalks, facades, street trees, lighting, safety. So within that section of the plan, we start to look at goals and strategies for how do you move Sallisaw forward, just being aesthetically pleasing. And having pride and identity within your community. And so that place making section really focuses in on creating that sense of place within Sallisaw. Then another really key priority we heard that we've included into section 6 is the downtown strategy. We broke that out while downtown is taken care of and really looked at a high level in land use, we really then started to focus in on downtown and how do you start to revitalize, or how do you move forward the forward growth that you have in Sallisaw and in your downtown area. So what we did there is we started to look at an analysis of your frontages on all of your streets. You'll see a rating system over there from A to E, A being that certain A frontages are those that are being active, they're aesthetically pleasing, they have activation, they're being used. E is the lowest rating scale. It means that there's things missing, that there are severe improvements needed in those areas. So we've done that for your entire downtown boundary area, is starting to look at and assess what areas are more priority for improvements versus what areas are working well in your downtown area. As well as then there's a map over there really looking at the focused in pieces of taking all the pieces of the plan and bringing it together. So looking at connectivity, mobility, placemaking, aesthetics, and really starting to see where are your gateways, what areas need to be connected or improved in terms of just connectivity or pedestrian access. And so that section really focuses in on a 6-block area of downtown. And so one of our questions also for you all, as well as to our stakeholders, were, have we identified the right boundaries for downtown? When you think of downtown over there, is that what are we showing the right boundary, or should it expand, or should it shrink? So right now it goes from Cherokee to the north to Chickasaw on the south, and then Elm to Wheeler. Looking at that. So think about that as you're looking through there as well, of have we identified that? If not, please let us know, have that conversation with Zoe or I of what that expansion or improvements could look like for the downtown area. So with that, real quick overview of just what we're looking at this evening, what we want you to do. But what I would like to do now is take 20, 30 minutes, however long we need, for you all to go look at the posters on the wall. What we're asking of everyone and what we asked of the stakeholder group is provide a green dot on things that you agree with, put a red dot on things that you disagree with, and then of course, we can't really refine things if we don't know what the red dots mean. So there's Post-its over there as well. So give us specifics on what you think needs to improve, or what changes you want to see. And then what I would like is, once we've gone through that, not only provide your own dots, but look at what the stakeholder group and technical committee have provided us as well. See if you agree with what they're saying. And then I'd like to reconvene over here and start to just have takeaways and have a conversation of what are you seeing that you like, but also then really start to focus in on what areas have red dots, and you all giving us guidance on how do we refine it, if a change needs to be made, or do we feel comfortable with what's being shown, and want to leave it as is, even though that there's a red dot. So I'd like to have that conversation. But first I'd like for you all to take some time, digest what's on the walls, and then go from there. So any questions from you all? No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Zoe and I will be over there. So if you have any questions while you're over at the boards, please let us know. And then, like I said, we'll reconvene, I'd say about 6:30, to have a conversation. So does that work? Perfect.
take the floor and
Sure.
see where we're going next.
All right, well, thank you all for taking the time to work through and look at all the information on the walls. I know it's a lot up there, but just kind of wanted to open it up for discussion. So I guess we could kind of walk through section by section, or if you want to, if there's just very specific things that you saw that that you think is working well, or are there things that you saw that you're concerned with? Like I said, generally I like to look at what has red dots versus not, but there's not a whole lot of red up there, so that's good. But I guess I'll open it up first. Any initial thoughts?
Conversation? Who wants to go first?
I didn't put a red dot on that second one, but I made a post-it note that I would like to see an emphasis on more aggressive development on East Cherokee,
Okay.
simply because it seems like the growth has been centered around Kerr, and that also is where our planned industrial area is. So just projecting what traffic is going to look like over there, I think it would serve us well to maybe try to split up whatever commercial that we can, so that it's not all centered on just one exit over there, and then it would be a nightmare for visitors and residents.
Okay. So you're saying,
Eastgate Shopping Center area and.
Even by the, well, they were making noise about Holiday Inn over there on Kerr. I mean, it's not up to any of us really, but it would stand to reason that maybe it would be better served over there closer to the sports complex. I mean, that's
City limit stops at the sports complex.
right, yeah.
And in fact, on the north side of 64, it stops.
The part of the difficulty with that whole thing is that so much of that land out there is in the floodplains, particularly on the north side of Cherokee. When it would be so much fill would have to be done in there to bring it up where it's usable. And then so much of the land on the east side, particularly the truck stop, has been tied up in litigation for years where no one could do anything with it, and it's been something that's been a constant battle with our folks at City Hall to try to get economic development done and get anything traction going on anything past Eastgate Mall, because it's just a weird ownership and a weird thing going on there on the north side when it's on floodplain. And then you get behind Libraries, that's all floodplain back in there. And so it's the old golf course. So there's just, you gotta talk about usable land. See, that's the thing. How much of it, people ask all the time, why aren't we doing anything out there? Well, a lot of it's just not usable land as far as being able to go in. It's not shovel ready. And it's a shame that the truck stop has been tied up as long as it has. And I know George has been working on that forever.
I can comment on.
Why don't you comment on that, George?
Yeah, so, I think the last couple of years it's been out of litigation. We had affected buyers, some of the city, and I'm not sure what the status is. I'll say it's still in the original owner's name, as far as the truck stop. I'll say the incentives package the incentives policy or ordinance you guys passed, and I say both commissions collectively passed, was initiated with the Eastgate Shopping Center in mind. And so, I think because of the nature or the way that was structured, I think we're able to incentivize growth over there more. I mean, you can take location into consideration, take into consideration that we've got an area of town that's maybe got some blight indicators, or maybe we want to see developed out for various reasons, and you can take that into consideration when you're offering those incentives. And I think it's wise to do so. But we have the ability, but to your point, Brad, it's a capitalist country. People can build where they want to, as long as it's in line with our laws.
I wasn't suggesting that we haven't made a valiant effort in development on that end, or that that end doesn't propose interesting challenges. I'm simply stating that I would hate to see that take a back burner and our sole focus be on Kerr when the infrastructure that's over there as far as traffic for the foreseeable future is, it's not like it's magically gonna get better. And, I mean, I work in Van Buren, and that, Highway 59 exit in Van Buren is an absolute nightmare, and they just put a Seven Brew and Chick-fil-A over there. I absolutely do not go over to that part of town anymore. It's just not worth it. I'd hate to see Kerr be that way.
Meeting a while ago, we talked about that. I think that's the one we talked about. Yeah, we talked about this afternoon, how bad that area was over there.
Well, Brad, you're right. I can already tell the difference in the traffic level on Kerr.
Oh,
You know, I think we all can see a difference in the number of cars going up and down. And, wait time when you're trying to pull out of a business and get onto Kerr, I think we're already seeing that. And that, you know, right or wrong, it's growth. I mean, you know, and it's just, it kind of is what it is, but I totally agree with you that east side needs some attention and needs to have, some growth out there, but it's just been so many challenges we've had, Brad, in the last years that it's just been prohibitive on getting anything done. And I'm on the Eastgate Shopping Mall, that we had an owner of that building that for years didn't put anything back into it. And now we're trying to attract businesses into that shopping mall, and we're having to do incentives to try to help them get in there because the previous owner didn't put any money into it. The roofs got bad, the air conditioning got bad, electrical got bad, and, you know, and, when Ollie's went in, they had to completely gut every piece of electric wire out of that building and completely redo the whole building with the electrical and AC.
And again, the policy that was passed it was done with that in the town in mind.
I think that, I have a question about the downtown. If we're talking about revitalization and we're talking about emphasis on business development, or what do you want to call it in downtown, one of the things that I'm hearing complaints from business owners is that, we don't have any timed parking. We don't have any, people are parking in front of their business and leaving their car all day long. So customers can't get to a good spot to get into take care of their business. I'm hearing that from more than one businessman downtown, that we need timed parking. We need, limited on how long a person can park downtown on those streets. And that's something I don't think I saw that up there anywhere, but it's something that probably should be included.
Okay.
Is, some kind of caveat for timed parking as far as, yeah, I'm hearing that from all the business people
Okay.
downtown.
That,
Not just times, but there's just a lack of.
And the lack of too,
I
is the
would
other
have
thing.
I would have my office downtown if I had parking. Most of my clients are older. I can't ask them to walk 2 blocks or 3 blocks to find parking spot. And that's the way it is right now. We had the time parking when I was downtown. We had not meter, but the tire marker came down through downtown and would mark the tires. Everybody would just go out there in 2 hours and move them. And so mine wasn't where she put it before, you know, wherever that was. And then they eventually got rid of it. The restaurants made the biggest difference down there. Once we started getting restaurants down there, that created the real bigger issues with parking. And a couple of businesses.
Yeah, it's double-edged sword. You get more businesses, you get more cars. I mean, it is just product of it, but I want to pass that on, that I'm hearing that from most of the business owners.
that's good to hear. So, I mean, I would say that's not something that I would say that we heard much through the process is parking concerns or the timed parking, but that's something that we can absolutely go back and look at. And even, again, a lot of what we've written into this section is really setting it up more as a toolkit for staff as they use the plan. So it's not that everything in that section has to be done, but it's if and when issues arise or opportunities arise, you know, there's a menu of options that could be done in terms of streetscaping or options for parking. So that's something that we could look at is putting that in there. Again, it's not this is required to do in your downtown area, but should you want to pilot it in an area or try it out, these would be our suggestions of how to go about that. I will mention, I mean, something then to consider though is when you start to add in timed parking. I mean, it adds a whole nother layer for staff is, I mean, you've got enforcement and what does that look like? And so, you know, we've worked in several communities and I specifically worked on a downtown plan where, their downtown was a main one street. And we heard that regularly was there was not enough parking and the timed parking was a hindrance actually to the businesses in some way there. Just because people would either move it around or not abide by it. Or some of the mixed use buildings ended up they had issues of some people were using it as an Airbnb and those spots on the street were being used by the Airbnb patrons rather than just those visiting the coffee shop. So there are things that definitely come with that. So just that those are things to be prepared for. I'd say enforcement is going to be the key thing because to his point, how do you start to enforce that? Is it through an app? Well, that's a whole modernization and a whole nother level of how does the city enforce that? What does that look like? What is the cost of that service? So just know that as I'm hearing you, Mr. Mayor, as something to consider, and we'll look at that and put in some options. But also there are some layered pieces that, of course, come with that. Also, I will say something to consider too in terms of not enough parking. It really is, I find, a perception of how far people are willing to walk. With the caveat of understanding that there are some patrons who are limited in accessibility and how far they can walk. But it truly is, as you add in that placemaking piece, as you start to look at those frontages that are not as utilized, and make them more appealing, have them be more active, people are going to be more willing to walk to places and destinations and not just go in one building and out next to their car. I always like to use the analogy of think of how far you're willing to walk from your parking spot in the Walmart parking lot and then walk all the way around Walmart to do all of your shopping. It's because you're looking, you're gathering, you're interacting with, with the store itself. So I really see as you all revitalize and you start to enhance the downtown area, I think that perception of, yes, you'll need to find more parking areas for sure, but people are going to be a bit more willing to walk places, just because they have more to interact. They're not just going down for one shop and back. Because you want to create that destination. You want to create that space that people are wanting to stay in for more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes, however long their errand takes. So just a few things to consider. But absolutely, we hear that often. And we'll look at the timed parking and parking spaces as well. Any other thoughts?
I think you've touched on a few other places, but it was the walkability and the designation for pedestrian traffic, clear distinction in those areas for that. So there is, I wouldn't say there's ample parking because I don't, I'm just not willing to do that, but there is parking across from Cherokee that's open locked and it's often empty. Okay, but to get from that area across Cherokee isn't, I don't want to do it. So I would imagine someone with mobility issues walking the grass and then across an area that's not designated for there's no signage or safe way for them to travel. It's almost, it renders that parking lot useful.
Or talk about crosswalks that light up.
Yeah, and I think a big piece of that comes again with yes, I agree. I mean,
That's only on this side.
people who have mobility issues, of course, should have closer parking spots, but you also want to enhance your area so that it's more accessible to individuals. So you start doing that with your pavement markings, with push button, for your street lights. The more of those enhancements and improvements you make in terms of pedestrian accessibility, it's going to be easier for those who don't have mobility issues to park across Cherokee and get there and be more willing to do it. So I think that's where that toolkit of things for downtown and how do you start to implement some of those tools and see how they work. you know, try it out on one street and see, you know, if that opens up, you know, some more options, and you could end up blanking it across your entire area. And then you could even implement them in other areas of your community as well, just so that you can get that mobility down. Any other?
The only thing I brought up,
Uh-huh.
which the city manager might answer, is on the railroad crossings. If we do develop some kind of way to go under it or over it, what happened to, I guess, the train not being able to stop in town for so many minutes, or the speed of it? Because I remember,
So there's a speed limit for the train for each of the railroads have speed limits for certain, you know, in town versus out of town. There's no, and there's no train stop in town.
because I thought there was like a deal where if a train were to stop to let another train go by, like they only can be stopped for so long. And
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to
yeah,
that.
because you know, I think just this year I've waited on, you know, Wheeler for like 30 minutes plus just to go home, you know, and there's no other way to cross the railroad tracks going down both sides unless it went to Muldrow or, you know, somewhere
No,
else.
and that's been brought up a couple of times, because when the train's stuck like that, yeah, you're going to Muldrow, if you're in the ambulance on the
Yeah.
south side of town, trying to get north to the hospital, you're going to Vienna or Muldrow to get around the train that's stuck. I don't have a quick answer for you.
Okay.
Building an overpass or an underpass would be I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be a significant financial undertaking by both the city and the train, or
Yeah.
the railroads.
Because I just never seen the train stop for that long.
Yeah, no,
You know, and this year
dedication.
it probably has to be the worst.
Yeah.
Oklahoma tried to do it in early 2020s. You can't mandate it. Only the federal government.
There is a time limit.
Yeah, there is a time.
I think I think it's 30 minutes is what I've heard in the past. They cannot stop more than 30
Yeah,
minutes.
Any other thoughts? I'm gonna say, so on the mobility framework, there were a few red dots. We've worked through a couple of them of just understanding that there was confusion of where certain locations were. So I'm going to say that that's a wash on the red dot. There was a red dot on sidewalk improvements along Redwood. The note said that Redwood is not wide enough for sidewalks. Be interested in your thoughts. That was a mixed conversation. Some say there is enough room, others don't. We've also talked about, again, that there's some options there. We understand that several of your areas in terms where we are identifying sidewalks. So I'll say sidewalks was the #1 priority through our economic development, and sidewalks were our 1 and 2 priorities from our engagement events when we were at the Fall Festival and the football game that we heard in our activity of wanting to be prioritized through the plan. So we've started to identify some areas where sidewalks could be potentially improved, as well as what that looks like. And so one idea we've been throwing around, understanding that drainage is one of the concerns there that does limit how much you can put in terms of just also cost, is really kind of looking at maybe a boardwalk style. So your drainage still remains underneath, but then you have some sort of boardwalk style plank sidewalk, not necessarily curb and culvert and concrete that's going down there, that then you have to install infrastructure for your drainage. But so working the two together, maybe doing that in a pilot area along the street and seeing how it works. So that's one idea. So that could work in that area, especially those areas that have more narrow streets or concerns with your street and your drainage as well. So be interested in what you all think on that red dot for Redwood and sidewalk improvements. Too narrow, not? Should there not be sidewalk improvements along Redwood?
I don't think we have an option to not do improvements for the sidewalk in that area. I mean,
Okay.
that's where for now anyways, that's where the football field is, that's where
Mhm.
the new water park is. So that's where the skate park is gonna be. So if we're gonna establish that area as some youth rec area or some attraction to, quote unquote, give the kids something to do, you've gotta have a means of safe travel. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to have, well, just walk on the side of the road and hope someone moves over. That's not acceptable.
Is there, enough easement there currently for that? Or would you have to take some easement, some land from residents?
There's some areas you're probably gonna have to do some additional easements, most of that area is just statutory, so 33 feet wide. You have some areas that are platted that are 50 foot wide, so you have to either jog it in and out or obtain additional.
So we ran into this, with a sidewalk along Elm Street, which is why we, instead of partnering with, homeowners and redoing the sidewalks along Elm Street, we took a portion of the street and made it basically a sidewalk on the street. I don't think, like he said, we're gonna have to get creative with a solution when it comes to Redwood. The road's as wide as it can go, there are utilities in the ditches on either side of it. How do we put something over that allows people to transit safely and to ADA compliant standards and all that good stuff, and still be able to pull it up and easily get at the utilities underneath? That's the issue, I'm sure you've all seen them, there's some kind of grading material on top, and you've got a cement culvert with holes for utilities in it, but when we're talking sewer and water mains, those are for fiber and maybe electric lines. But even that doesn't provide us our electricity is not buried. So, how do we do this to allow sidewalks and still maintain the utilities where they are? And that's when you get into, if you think about the ditches, are about the extent of our easements. Well, if you want to put a sidewalk on the home sides of those easements, we have to get permission from every homeowner to widen the easement to put in a sidewalk.
Also, I'm not sure that I would necessarily support a sidewalk all of east and west on Redwood anyways, because what's east of the skate park and the water park is soon to be expanded Highway 59. I wouldn't want foot traffic necessarily over there, so it might be smarter to have sidewalks in the general vicinity of where the foot traffic is going to be, but try to funnel them south. Is there parking south, and are the streets wide enough south that where that new stop sign is, we could put sidewalk frontage and maybe have them park further away, or they can get through there when they're walking via downtown to come up there more.
So Elm is wide enough from the railroad tracks to to Redwood. It's wide enough, and then we do have a walking lane, and it's marked. The folks from the OSU extension actually marked that a couple weeks ago.
Just take some of the road, make
Bike
the sidewalk
lane,
on
walking
the road.
lane, yeah.
It's painted, you can walk safely.
I'm on there.
I know, you hadn't seen it, I know.
So yeah, so
Yeah, y'all
there's
go look
there's
at
enough
that.
room to
It's pretty
put
cool.
a walking lane and still have two-way traffic safely. There's not enough room on Redwood to widen it enough to be able to do that. Again, we're back into the ditches and the utilities thing. If we were gonna do a sidewalk, I would recommend actually putting a sidewalk in from 17 to 59. To address all of those and get all of those, communities connected to the hospital, the senior center, and the skate park and pool. It's just a matter of how.
Yeah.
And that comes into Olson and we're gonna have to experiment.
Mhm.
What works and what works best. And then figure it out from there and then apply it as best we can to the rest of the city. But it's gonna take a little bit of time to figure it out. And again, that was one of the reasons why we went to the street route on Elm, is because there were homes that didn't have sidewalks that they had deliberately taken them out, when a house was renovated or something along those lines, so just easier to go on the road.
Is it possible to look at one-way roads that allow you to do exactly what you said, bring the sidewalks in and have flowed traffic in those areas?
So we could, however, we're talking about Redwood, one of the arteries, arguably one of the arteries north of Cherokee. That would mean making Redwood one way. And now those feeder roads, we could actually make one way and snake through and all that good stuff, but I'm not saying it's too hard to do, but making Redwood one way would be challenging.
It'd be pretty much impossible between 59 and Elm, just with your ambulance flow. That would
They were
really
eliminating
limit your
too much.
ambulance issues there.
Yeah, and I just want to note, so on that framework, what we're looking at, the segment that we're specifically looking at is exactly that. It's 17 to 59. So we're not talking about the entirety of Redwood as
When you go
either,
west
so-
of 17, there's just no way possible. I mean, the yards are right up on the street. They're just, and the bottom line is, and I've told those people forever, there's just streets in this town that were never, ever designed to have a sidewalk. They're just too narrow. You get down in Poncho, south side of town, there's streets that you can barely get two cars down the road as it is, and there's utilities right up against the street. You know, there's streets in this town that were never designed for sidewalks. And to put them in now would be almost impossible in places in our town. I mean, that's the reality of it. It is what it is. And we just can't put them in certain streets. There's just no way you could do it. You couldn't do 17 going north. I mean, you know, that's a major highway now with trucks and traffic going to Marble City. But there's no way you can put sidewalks on 17. It's just not gonna happen.
Would the sidewalks be on north and south side of Redwood or just on one side or the other?
We'd have to take a look at it, sir. My going in position is we'd sacrifice one ditch and make that the sidewalk side. And it would, I'd have to look at a map to see if we have utilities on both sides or if it's just there's one.
We own this path,
Yeah. Moving the least bit of ground.
Say any other thoughts? The only other red dot over there was a discussion of a underpass at Elm and Cherokee for the rail.
Which goes back to what we were
Right.
talking
Yeah, that's what I was talking
Yeah.
about, my idea.
Okay.
No, full vehicle,
Mhm.
either overpass or underpass.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's no way we can do that, you know what I mean? It's like, so we had to talk to the railroad company, like, hey,
Mhm.
if y'all know that you have to stop in town, stop before you get to Sallisaw, just so you're not blocking our traffic.
It would be a Cherokee and the underpass on Cherokee, that's what we, if we were gonna do it.
The only other comment I wanna make is that I had a conversation, is that we've been trying to emphasize as far as our industrial, our jobs, as us to be a regional attractor for jobs and for people to come in here. We've lost people to Fort Smith for so many years. And so we've got this huge corridor of the River Valley here with all these folks who go up and down I-40 to their job. A lot of them are going straight past Sallisaw to go to Fort Smith to get to work. And so, and Van Buren to the port, whatever, but the emphasis on our economic development is that for Sallisaw to become that hub for this area where people, and that's why we're trying to create so many jobs in the industrial park and here in town where people can, so I just think the emphasis on being a regional attractor for employment is something we just continue to emphasize, needs to continue to be emphasized for our for light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, whatever, is a regional draw for jobs for this area. That's just, I think that's been an emphasis we need to keep on.
Yeah,
We have
that's-
so many assets too with Carl Albert, with Indy Capital. There's so many assets that we have here. We were talking about concurrent enrollment earlier. We were talking about just so many positive things that are happening in this community that people are wanting to move to Sallisaw, and that's a really good problem, to have, And so we just need to continue to be a cheerleader for our community.
Absolutely, and that's something, I mean, we've heard from the start, I believe, when Brian and George and I started to even have any conversations is, you know, getting a plan in place, but really focusing in on the economic development piece of it, and continued strategic growth for Salisaw. You know, at length, Eric's report is a good, probably 75 or 80 pages, but it really gives, you know, staff the backing to really go out and attract those businesses and attract the industrial development as well as commercial and retail development, but it does focus in a good amount on what does that industrial continue to look like and how do you become that regional hub in many ways. So that's been our hope all along, is to give you a document that does set you up to be able to start to attract more than you already have been. So.
Did you ever figure out a household potential of how many people could move into Sallisaw in the current city limits?
Yes.
An estimate of a number?
It's off the top of my head. I don't believe I have that exact number, but I know we are looking at, let's see. I know I've got it over here, I think. Let's see. No, that's office. I was gonna say,
476 new residents
yes.
in the next, in 2050. So I don't know what that equates to the population of 476.
Households?
Households or
Okay, yeah.
Is what's
Yep.
projected.
of households?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be
Thank you, George.
living units.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, so we've tried to incorporate in some of those goals, the very specific metrics that came from that economic report, is identifying specific what the projections are, you know, over the time period in terms of square footage for office, for industrial, retail, as well as then the rooftops. that
Did you stay
should
in the
be.
confines of the city limits, or did you actually look at what opportunities for growth? I couldn't tell.
Within the confines of the city limits, so.
So there was no recommendation of direction the city should kind of orient for growth, extend itself in the
So
future?
there's one area that we've shown additional growth or annexation without
Okay, there's
out-
an, I didn't see an annexation.
outside of your limits.
Yeah.
It's really looking at just filling in, making this more of an angled area for your industrial. So looking at that and filling in these areas. So if you see down here, we've kind of started to identify that, a little bit of annexation in that area, but everything else is targeted specifically within your city limits.
You know, we haven't talked about, you know, I was thinking about this when Brad was talking about the growth going down 59 south on Kerr instead of on East Cherokee. I don't know how long it's gonna be, but you know, you've got highway, you know, Interstate 49 south that's going all the way to New Orleans. You know, they're starting that expansion now further south of Little Rock. That's a really, you know, taking that 308 exit there, heading south on 59, you know, they're redoing all that road all the way to that. That's gonna be the cut through. I mean, you know, we've been also talking, rapping about, you know, state road, you know, trying to get the 308 completed at some point because the traffic's so bad there. That's really gonna get bad at some point when that I-49 goes all the way to New Orleans, because this would be an excellent cut through. You'd have a warehouse in Tulsa or Muskogee. It makes a whole lot of sense to turn south here than it does to go all the way down to the next exit. Because that's gonna be great road. That'll be interesting too. Create a lot of traffic, but it also, the idea that, you know, in some of your retail, especially restaurant expansion and stuff, taking that down 59 south makes more sense because of some of that other stuff that's gonna be coming at some point. Maybe a while down the road before they get that much built. I don't know what their exact plans are, but that's the plan, to go all the way to New Orleans. Yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments? Concerns with anything that's up there?
I think you've done a wonderful job. I appreciate it.
We're pushing through, so I appreciate that. It's been an effort for sure. But we've enjoyed all of the work that we've done within your community, talking with your community members, you all, as well as staff. So happy to do it and happy to be here. And really looking forward to getting these few refinements made. And then just in terms of next steps, so seeing that there's not major concerns or refinements, we'll make those, but then also we've been working on and we'll finish up the implementation. So that's section 7 of the plan. So what that really starts to do is outline, it's an implementation matrix, very specific actions to each of the sections of the plan. So it sets staff up as well as you all up with a guide of this specific action needs to take place in this time frame potentially, and we even start to identify if there's a desire for it. We don't put specific dollars to it, but we'll typically rank it A, B, or C just in terms of level or ease of implementation. So when you look at that action, you're saying, okay, this is something that's done in-house and internally with staff. Or if it's a C level, it requires going out to RFP and a bid and design, consultant construction, all of that. So that you at least get a sense of, as you're looking through, what actions you need to take, who's leading that charge, and what level of implementation it'll take for you to achieve it over the next 10, 15 years. And we'll put a time frame as well with that. So that you all can start really kind of checking off and seeing that the plan is moving forward. One piece of it that we continually say to do is an annual review of the plan. It really is a guidebook. It is a living document. So despite that we're here today, and when we leave, we want you to have an implementable but realistic plan. So, something that we suggest today may not make sense in 2 years. So to be able to evaluate it and just make sure that you make those few amendments, it just keeps that plan fresh rather than it sitting on the shelf as well. So that's just an example of like one of the action items that would be in that implementation. So we will finish up implementation action steps, get those over to staff to review as well. And then once that's all wrapped up, we'll do a full review of the final draft. As well, and then bring it back to you all for adoption.
Any further comments or questions? And you guys are presenting at Chamber tomorrow?
Yes. Yep. We're just no activities or anything, just giving them a brief presentation and update, just where the process, what we've heard and where we're at in the process.
Okay.
So. Anything?
So just as an example, they've done really good work on identifying some low hanging fruit, if you will. For instance, I'll use an example. We've got great signs at 308 and 311. We don't have anything coming up from south on 59. We don't have anything coming up identifying, hey, welcome to Sallisaw, or you're entering Sallisaw, something like that on 64 or 59. So just something that simple, putting a road sign out there, or duplicating or shrinking, scaling the welcome signs that we have on 308 and 311 at those different entry points to the city are just, again, just an example of some of the things that they're going to give us in the implementation plans. But
I don't know where in the scope it falls, but one of the post-it notes I put on there was, I really thought there was a lack of signage for brushing. We're approaching lake season, and unless you know, you don't know that Brushy's there.
And Brushy's a whole nother, a whole thing that, it with investment, it could be a destination spot very, very easily. The staff has internally worked over the summer to bring that reservation. You've heard me talk about it at council meetings, but bring that reservation process online. But if y'all have been, and we just had the trail, she's not here. We just had the OSU folks walk through our trails up there and said it's make some easy recommendations that we can fix in house. But we've also have some plans for some improvements, changing the mass bathrooms, if you will, to individual family style bathrooms, so that your daughter or your son could go to the restroom and lock the door behind them. Just some things to modernize and make it a little bit better. But we're working on it. I just want, how do I get people off of 308 up 17 to Brushy? Brushy's got a beautiful sign out in front of it, but how do we get folks there? But we believe a little bit of investment, a little bit of, not necessarily tourism money, but it could become a destination pretty easily. And for a lot of people, it already is. Yes, sir.
That was just my 2 cents.
Brushy is ripe for, I'm not gonna say exploitation, but marketing and getting folks up here. And it's a niche lake. If you want a quiet lake, Brushy's a way to go. If you want power equipment and ski-doos and surfing, or not surfing, but tubing, hey, 10 killers up there, knock yourself out. If you wanna come paddleboard and fish, Brushy's where you need to be.
Yeah.
So, and folks, a lot of folks that go to 10 killer have to drive past us to get there, so. Okay, any other questions or comments to me or from for the consultants?
No.
Again, just want to thank them and publicly thank everybody, yourselves included, that have provided input and feedback over the past 8 months. Some folks have answered surveys on Facebook, some folks have stopped by activation tents that we've done, and just given really good feedback and built the product that you guys saw tonight.
What was the feedback online compared to the in-person?
In terms of numbers or
Yeah.
just what we've
Well,
heard?
our initial meeting, one of the things I was pretty confident on was, unless you go out and are engaging intentionally, the amount of feedback that you're going to receive passively is
Mhm.
abysmal.
Yeah, and I mean, we heard, I want to say it was about 200 on online survey, if I recall correctly. I could get the exact number. And we did that in multiple waves too. So we had closed it, and then we had also sent out a reminder of, hey, here are the preliminary results, posted those on the website as well. And then opened it back up for everyone to have another opportunity to take it and the full final results. And then when we were out in person, I mean, we were at, I want to say I probably talked to 100 people or more, 200 people at each event. I mean, we were downtown for 4 hours at Fall Festival, and we were at the full football game. I mean, we were there from start to end during the homecoming football game, and that even in itself, I was just impressed by the range of ages that we talked to. There was actually a lot of youth engaged in both of those activities as well. So
That had demographics on it, didn't it? The one, I thought I seen results from that survey and it had
Yes.
demographics on it. Yeah.
yeah, and I'd have to look up exactly
Yeah.
what the demographics were on that. I could send that back out. But
I-
that one,
I
I
think
mean,
it
the
was-
survey, you're gonna get the older, more millennial and older populations responding to that. And then, yeah, we talked to a lot of youth, at the festival and at the homecoming game. It also helps when you're enticing them with candy. And there was, we did some giveaways at both of those. So we had a little game of, it was right around Halloween time. So it was, guess how many M&Ms were in the jar, and we gave away a gift card to a local business for that. So we tried to be creative in how we engaged people as well, and making sure that they were aware that we were out.
That was kind of what I was getting at, because I think, without looking at the demographic again, it was women primarily, and from the online survey, and it was married, employed women, I think, were the number one contributor on the online survey. But really what we're talking about impacts, I mean, it does impact everyone, but I would think that the youth would be have a more vested interest. So if that the in-person engagement was more youth, That's promising.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
really was. It's exciting to see them interact and also for them to actually understand. We weren't just asking them, what's your favorite color kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we were asking them the hard questions of really think about your community and the things that you prioritize and value within Salisaw. And so we had, if you weren't aware or saw it, we had multiple jars where they drop marbles in. I believe we had 10 jars. So then we allocated 6 marbles to them, and have them think about, these are your dollars. You can spend all your dollars in one place or you can disperse them evenly or not. But allocate that. And that really started to help us understand that prioritization, of what individuals wanted to see. And that really shaped then the framework of the plan itself. And those themes. So, and those themes that we had at the activity there was following the charrette. So, understanding from the charrette process, our stakeholders, as well as those that attended the public meeting, what were those key themes that we were hearing, come out of that process. So,
Any other comments, questions?
No.
Would you like to adjourn your planning commission first, please?
We can.
Motion to adjourn?
I make motion.
Second.
Motion made, approved.
So, have a motion to, adjourn his, planning commission, the council meeting, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Moody,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes. Thank you all.